earlier in the year, when our application was made known, the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu, personally endorsed letters to each governor in Nigeria, detailing the local government areas in each state that are likely to be heavily impacted. With all the necessary documents, they were dispatched. This time we couldn't go as an agency from state to state or zone to zone because of the lockdown, but we are mobilized every other social media to reach out, and I think we'll be able to reach out more than we ever did before. The response is what actually baffles us. When I was talking in February 4th, we began our sensitization program before the lockdown, where I said, as I said about 3 days ago here in NTA, that the best time to prepare for war is during the time of peace. As February, Nigeria was at peace with regards to flooding.
And even COVID.
COVID too, yes. So we expected that by that time, you can clear your drainages. You can remove structures that are within the flood plains or water flood paths. Those things could be done by then, dredging or deseating small rivers within your own catchments. Let us not talk about River Niger and Benue, the issue of deseating. But there are small rivers, small channels that ought to have been taken care of during that period, or even building or constructing drainages. They could have been done during the dry season, but most such things were not done. And again, we keep warning. For instance, in Abuja, the city, maybe the phase 1, where we are, talk about Maitama, Gariki, there are infrastructures, drainages, bridges. But go to the satellite towns, the outskirts, you talk about Lokogoma, this and that. One big man will go to FCD, FCT, get maybe 10 hectares of land. He will go and put a fence around it. Use ruler and pencil and demarcate and say plot this, plot that, and put beacons. No road. Nobody has said this is the road for the flood. Like what happened at Sunday Estate around Day. Houses were built, no consideration was made for flood. Nobody talk about flood plain mapping. What size of drainage should we build that will convey the flood water? What we saw was a disaster about maybe 3 weeks ago in that area. So before you put any structure, especially during the dry season, be able to consult relevant authorities. Like in Abuja here, talk about the Development Control Department. They can advise you properly as to where to put structures, where to put your drainages, so as not to impede.
What could His Excellency, the Kebbi State Governor, had done in the case of Kebbi, being river that of course overflowed?
We mentioned it earlier on that the issues about flooding disasters are inevitable, but you can reduce the impact. Like he rightly mentioned, the human loss, even if it is one person, drastically reduced. Relocating people from those locations. These are things that could be done. You can't stop precipitation from coming. You cannot do that. And as long as we don't have any dam, say between Kebbi State and Niger, there may be no way you can regulate the flow. The best you can do is to evacuate the people within reasonable reach of the banks of the river.
Thank you. Just let me pause. I want to bring in this Kingsley, His Excellency, because I understand that settlers in one of the local government areas, I think it's Bagudu or so, Bagudu, were actually asked to relocate, but they refused. No, because that's one of the areas that was affected.
Bagudu local government is where the River Rima joins the River Niger. So it's just like a mini Lokoja.
Yes, yes.
And therefore the flood water there tends to be bigger than in other areas. And it's a complex historical process. Many farmers, many communities have a historical view about where flood water reaches. And they feel this is safe ground. And people are very reluctant to leave their communities. even when they see danger, they think they can manage it. Especially riverine people, riverine communities, who feels if I have a boat, I can always navigate and live in good time. And like I said, over the years, we have seen quite remarkable success about which has translated in
minimizing the risk.
Minimal loss to human life. But some of these things which DG Inze described, drainages, are all okay, and you wish you can do them, but they cost money, a lot of money, particularly if you have to do them in many, many places. And state governors have responded, but in Bagudo, people have been very responsive. The biggest challenge we still have in Kebbi, was when Kanji Dam was being constructed, there was promise to relocate communities by the federal authorities. And those villages are still where they are, Dugusoho, near Inyauri Emirate. And they are the ones that have been, their community-wise, most prone to flooding in the urban areas. But the warning, the heeding to warning by communities have increased significantly, and that has minimized human
Loss.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency. One more time, let's bring in Deputy Director of NEMA, that's Abdullahi Uso. You've talked about what NEMA is doing, but we also know from past experience that sometimes state governments and local governments virtually sit on their hands and say, NEMA, come to our aid, come to our aid. We were told on this program that one state government has a state emergency management agency and with only 2 employees. What level of cooperation are you getting now from the SEMAs, that is to say the state emergency management agencies? Or again, are they just looking up to the federal government when they themselves haven't, as it were, lifted a finger or are not even overwhelmed yet?
Thank you. You see, disaster management is multi-jurisdictional and is multi-sectoral. The multi-jurisdictional aspect is that at federal level, NEMA is supposed to manage disasters at national level. So it is assumed that the sub-nationals are also supposed to have in place their structures for managing disasters. That's state emergency management agencies. But because of our federal structure, we cannot impose or force, but we can advocate. And it's through advocacy that most of the state emergency management agencies, through NEMA's years of advocacy, that some of these state emergency management agencies were established. There are always improvement. We keep improving from the level we were 10, 20 years ago to now. Quite a lot of states have quite a lot of them, about 30-something, now have SEMAs. What is required is for them to strengthen them by passing the necessary laws and properly funding the SEMAs. This is the only way we can get stronger SEMAs at sub-national level. With that, we'll be able to collectively manage disasters in the country. We, just like somebody, you said, there are still states that have very weak SEMAs. But with continuous advocacy, we believe that the situation will continue to improve. With the coming of the new DG.
When you talk about weak SEMA, that's weak state structures.
Yeah.
What exactly are you referring to?
Yeah, what I mean is just like he mentioned earlier, you have a state SEMA that probably does not have a backing law that is backing it. That is weak, because it doesn't have the legal backing. And then if there's no proper funding, no proper staffing, and if you have the staff too, you need to build their capacity for them to be able to respond. Give them proper funding, proper capacity building, and then proper infrastructure for them to work. This is what I mean by weak SEMA. So for them to be able to meet up to the level of at national level, they really need to, the states need to strengthen. They are doing quite well, some of them. Some of the states have strong SEMAs very well. We know some of them. Those that have, we will continue to encourage through advocacy. The new DG is very, very interested in seeing this level of collaboration, bringing up everybody together so that we can work for the country together to build the resilience of our people.
NEMA is at the federal level is supposed to play a supervisory role over those at the sub-national level. At what point do you intervene? If you say some of them are not backed by law, some of them do not have the necessary infrastructure to work.
That's what I just said. It is true advocacy. You know, the federal structure is that NEMA cannot impose anything on states. But through constant interaction, constant collaboration, and advocacy, I believe we will reach the level where everybody will meet up to speed.
All right.
Also, just on that, in 2018, when 14 states were affected severely, Mr. President directed NEMA to work with the 14 states to come up with the estimates. And because of that, as Vice Chairman of the Food Security, I was opportune to interact with all the 14 states. And they are all up and doing, and the degree of collaboration between them and the National Emergency Management is quite solid. So
Exactly.
Okay, but you said 14. So well, we have 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. So we'd like to see that number ramped up. Let's return to Professor Emmanuel Adano in our Kaduna Network studios. Professor Adano, as it were, we're going to have to live with floods and flooding for some time to come. Now, a lay person might raise the proposition. We're talking about recharging Lake Chad, and that's been a passionate cause undertaken by President Muhammadu Buhari. And so, from a layman's perspective, all the floods and the devastation and the water has just flowed into the ocean, couldn't we have some giant, even magical canal that would channel the waters to Lake Chad?
Well, magical canal, probably you can tell us the magic. But let me tell you one thing. Now, unless you have an excess water, which you really consider excess, you can divert to somewhere else. Any water flowing in anywhere may have established an environmental condition that that environment has been living with. It's an ecosystem problem. Now, the suggestion that we should take water from Congo to Chad is because the volume of water that Congo is discharging into the ocean is so enormous. It's only about 5% of it that is required to recharge Lake Chad. Now, if you decide to take that 5% from Nigeria, for instance, that's about 100 billion cubic meters of water, which is already a third of our total water resources potential renewable in the country. Now, where do you take it from? Now, the energy you are going to use to take that water and the amount of water that you use, because the moment you reverse the flow, because all our waters tend to flow to the ocean. Now, if you reverse the flow, it means that you are depriving a certain environment of a huge volume of water. That environment, the sociological or ecological problem will start arising. But I'm not saying that it is not possible. It is possible. Now, there is a suggestion by, I think, dams now, Federal Ministry of Water Resources, of a transfer in the northeast there. How we transfer? But the amount of water required there is only just to water an environment, at least for agricultural purposes. It cannot fill Lake Chad at all. It may not even get up to Lake Chad because there's a ball in the middle there that may take the water, but water the environment sufficiently for agricultural purposes. It cannot recharge Lake Chad. even the total volume of water we require to recharge Lake Chad is so enormous. And if we get that volume and we're recharging Lake Chad, it will take us at least 10 to 12 years to get a very significant amount of change that can bring some substantial life into existence in the region. Now, we have an option, which is a fossil aquifer in the Sahara. That is the largest fossil aquifer in the world. It has the capacity to recharge that Lake Chad, because the total volume of water under the Chad there, it will take the volume of water that drains from Congo into the ocean, which you require about 90 years to fill it. So if we can do, I think we need to consider other options. So
I'm afraid we'll have to interrupt you here to bring in His Excellency for our last question. Your Excellency, I just want, first of all, the community in Kangiwa where the bridge was cut off, how soon are we expecting that to be addressed? That's just one. And then finally, the National Food Security Council, on a general note, what are the plans to mitigate flood with regards to attaining our food security?
Yes, we have already sent, we have been working in Kebbi with a company owned by the Army Corps of Engineers, and they are already in Japeji to give us advice on what to do to provide access to the people of the town, to that community. But on the wider issue of what National Food Security Council is doing, I believe the President has been on and about on this issue, and I'm sure soon he will convene the meeting of the council, which he will chair himself, and look at the issues holistically. Like I said, the food security issue is multi-sector, multifaceted, as we can even imagine from this discussion. You need the water engineers, the water professionals, you have the scientists who does the prediction, you have the environmentalists, you have finance, you have trade policies that different countries employ. You bring all of it together to estimate what is happening around the world, how does it impact my food supply and food production. Currently, in addition to all these complications, we have the coronavirus pandemic that has affected international trade and is challenging. It has exposed the vulnerability of food systems around the world. But I believe we are comfortable, Nigeria. We are able, as I said, even after with this flooding, we are able to mobilize our populace, and they have proved resilient in the past, and I have no doubt that we'll do much better to mobilize them for compensatory production, which will even give us more output during the dry season.
All right, Your Excellency, thank you very much. Just before we express our gratitude to you and the other guests for being with us, one or two takeaway messages. Professor Adanu says that part of the ways that we can effectively and efficiently manage our water systems is to utilize the dams. We've heard on Good Morning Nigeria, the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Adamu, talk about the fact that some state governments do not even utilize the dams that have been constructed by the federal government. So, takeaway message, you are governor, you are chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum and a member of the Nigeria Governors Forum. Engineer Nze, takeaway, you've talked about Kogi being on alert. You haven't warned Niger, you haven't warned Anambra, you haven't warned Imo, and Delta, perhaps Ebonyi and Delta. So I hope they are listening, and I hope they will also hear you out. Nema, well, we hope that the disaster doesn't spread and that every other person is out there. And Professor Adano, keep on with your research and your work. Gentlemen, we'd like to appreciate you for being with us today. It's been a very interesting conversation on a wet morning here in Nigeria's capital territory. Executive Governor of Kebbi State, His Excellency Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, who is also Vice Chair of the National Food Security Council. Thank you very much for being with us. DG NISA, that's Engineer Clem Nze, thank you for being around. we hope that you have more good news next time you face the governor when the waters will have receded from his
I hope so.
location.
Thank you.
Deputy Director, Forecasting and Mitigation, Nema Abdullahi Adamu Uso, we appreciate your being with us this morning.
Thank you. I just want to put on record.
Just hang on a second. Next time you have the opportunity for putting all that things on record. Professor Emmanuel Adanu, Executive Director, National Water Resources Institute in Kaduna. We appreciate you. And by the way, he used to be Director of Dams when he was in the line ministry at Water Resources. Prof, thank you very much for being around.
All right, and that's the climax of our conversation this week on Good Morning Nigeria and the Network Service. We appreciate all of you, all your Twitter messages, and we do hope you join us again, same time on Monday, for another interesting edition. I am Claire Adelabo Abdulrazak. Do stand against rape and rapists.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. Stay safe and be well. Have a nice weekend.